when you guys have faced some smaller guards throughout the year, they've been able to get you guys in trouble. I guess how are you kind of going in and trying to deal with Jackson Shellstad?
He's a really good player. He's obviously not the only one they have, but I think defensively, I think we've gotten better as the year's gone on. It's not necessarily always or exclusively the guy on the ball. It's we've gotten better in terms of ball screens. Now Biddle will pick and pop, much like a Visage did. So we'll have to contend with that. But I think our holistically defensively, we've gotten better in terms of better on the ball, better with the initial ball screen, better around it, helping those two guys that are involved initially in the ball screen. Then, and obviously guys off the bench have helped us with that too. With Kamari, I think has been good and gives us a little change of pace. But Shellstad's a handful, Barthelomew's a handful. Obviously, when you got a big that's as good as Biddle is and shoots threes and plays at the rim and blocks shots, they're a really good team. I think you look at their record and say, well, they're 8-8 or whatever in the league, but they started 14 or 15-0, beat some really good teams, beat Alabama, beat San Diego State. You go through the list, and now it looks like they're playing better, like they did earlier in the year. So we'll definitely have our hands full and prep here today and tomorrow for them.
More on Shellstad. I don't know if you've watched the recent Iowa game, but it was the first time that in a while that he didn't score 15. Like he's shown some of those games this season, where he's kind of shown some inconsistency. What have you seen in those games that you guys kind of try to copy and key in on there?
Well, I haven't watched last night's game yet. I start back further in the year as we build, and I'll watch that one probably tonight or tomorrow. And then I try to also, you look at teams that are similar to you defensively. Iowa's not, so I don't know how much value we'll get out of that, but I'll watch it just to see, because it's obviously a very recent game. But you gotta look at what he does well and what gives him trouble, and sometimes just somebody has an off night, or he doesn't score and they still score 80. So you look at, sometimes they ask that about Steve Kraut for us. Well, he didn't score very much. Well, yeah, but we scored 85. So there's other things and other components that go into making their team good, and a team that can still score 80 when you have your point guard not scoring at all, obviously tells you the depth and the talent of the rest of the guys.
Greg, you touched on some of what he could do, obviously, but just what type of impact does a player like Biddle have when he can do a little bit of both? And what did you like that you guys did against Visage earlier this week?
Well, I think from Biddle's standpoint, he impacts the game on both ends. Leads our league, I believe, in block shots. He had two big ones last night. Blocked Josh Dix's game winner at the end. And I've seen him. I haven't studied Oregon in depth up until the last couple days, but just catching him. They run a lot of good stuff for him. They put him on the post and spread you out and throw over the top of you. He's really comfortable. Teams have tried to double him. He's big enough at 7'1", and arms seem like they go forever, that he finds people over the top. And then obviously his ability to shoot it. Whenever you have somebody that big that can stretch the floor, that's such another level of a weapon. And obviously we've seen that with Steve and Nolan, what they can do, and that stress that puts on a defense, specifically when you have good guard play around it with Shellstad and Bartholomew, and Bamba and those guys. So it's, like I said, it's a good team. I think I don't get caught up in records. I look at who they play and what they've done, and you just watch them for a while. They're a very talented team.
Coach, defensively this year, you guys have averaged around 5 steals or so a game. Against Illinois, you guys felt like you guys were in the pick and roll, pick and pop lanes a good amount, and kind of creating disruption there. 12 steals in that one. What did you kind of see from that department, and how do you think that can translate? I know steals maybe not necessarily, but just getting in the passing lanes like that, how do you think that can translate going forward?
Yeah, it's always game to game. Every game's a little different, because even though schematically maybe we don't change, there's lineups that you can plug more off of. There's lineups that you have to be into the ball more. There's lineups that we can basically what we call spy. We don't have to basically not guard somebody and leave them in the lane longer. to plug up things. So it really goes on game by game basis. And I think when you see steal numbers go up, now we're not out in the passing lanes, we're not overplaying things, we're not extending pressure, but ball pressure is always important, right? And I've always said you never want to let a good player play without not being under pressure. So ball pressure starts, that's the point and probably the most important thing in our defense, aside from getting back and getting set with 5 guys, to make sure we got consistent ball pressure, to get that passer or that dribbler a little uncomfortable, a little out of their zone that they want to play in, get them a little further out on the floor. Even if you move them by 3 or 4 feet, it disrupts an offense. So that's really where it starts with us. The ball pressure's been better. And then guys, I think around the ball are understanding their roles. They follow the scouting reports really well. You've heard me talk about Gilmore and his ability to sniff things out and cover up others' mistakes. So it's a combination of all those things coming together. But the connectivity of this group has been really good. And they understand how important that end of the floor is. Even though we score a lot of points, they know that defensively we have to be pretty rock solid every night.
Max is, from an assist standpoint, his assists are up a little bit, but that doesn't always mean you're making, that doesn't completely show what kind of playmaker you are for others. So I guess one, assuming he is a better playmaker, where is he better? And in terms of being a playmaker for this team, does he go about it differently than maybe John Blackwell or Tajay?
Yeah, I think obviously they're all a little bit different in how they do it. I mean, assists are going to be up because our scoring's up. So, more baskets equal more assists as a team. But I think he's becoming, Max specifically, is becoming more comfortable, or is more comfortable than he was, 2 years ago. I think the system has helped him. The spacing on the floor has helped everybody because we can really spread people out. And he's taken advantage of it. He's picked his spots. I thought he was really good down the stretch at Purdue, drawing a lot of contact and driving gaps, and he's strong and mature and can make free throws. So I think all those things have helped, but when you get really good scorers around you, your daylight to the lane and to the basket gets a little brighter, right? You don't see as much help or as much, they can't plug as much, like I just talked about spying. Who are you going to spy off of on our team? It's a hard, you got to kind of pick who you're not going to guard, and the ability to move the ball and spread people out and play unselfishly and then attack when the opportunity comes is what Max has done a good job of recognizing and taking advantage of those opportunities.
Steve?
What was it that triggered the decision to kind of adjust the offensive approach the way you had? Was it an evolving thing, or was there something you saw that made you
No, there
realize?
was nearly no epiphany, I would say, not an exact moment. I think I got asked about that this morning on a radio show, and probably was 3 years ago. I don't really have an exact date in mind, but just, we had kind of blended some of the continuity ball screen at a very elementary level, back before Johnny Davis even played for us. And about that time, we were using it just as a supplement to some of the swing stuff we had done. We had kind of migrated away from swing even before that consistently. We used it more as quick hitters and actions within it, and just watching how the game has evolved and changing, and rule changes have been a part of that. I think knowing where the college game is going or has gone, scoring was going to be, not that defense is not important, it is, but just where the trends were, you have to score. The teams that were going deep into March were scoring. So I think that's kind of where we had to find another way, or a little different way, but yet not at the same time not lose sight of who we are and our core principles and those things. And then just how players have maybe adjusted and adapted and developed a little differently. Everybody has a trainer for their left hand, and a trainer for their right hand, and a trainer for their jump shot. Nobody has a trainer for off-ball screening anymore, and they all get trained in ball screens. And if you want to play professionally, you better be good at pick and roll, or you better shoot threes. And then I think another part of it, obviously, was how we've always kind of peaked at analytics, but really taking a deep dive and embracing some of that, and really understanding it, getting underneath to the science behind it, and studying that, and then, like I said, putting this together. Obviously, Kurt coming here, you know, a year and a half ago in the summer, it kind of all, it was starting there, but it picked up speed, and I think we're still, you know, we're much further ahead than we were a year ago, or light years ahead of where we were, you know, 3 years ago, but we still can grow and get better, and then the recruiting has become specific to it, and very positional, specific and intentional. So it's not one exact answer, or one exact reason. It's been a kind of a combination of a lot of different things.
Zach?
Greg in the back, the stretch that you guys are on, you know, getting an emotional win at Purdue, then being able to turn the page quickly and you know, snap a losing streak to Illinois, and now it's on to Oregon. How has this team maybe mentally been able to just kind of flip the switch to, okay, we won, now it's on to the next one? Does that come from the experienced veteran team that you have? Does that help that they're been there, done that before?
Yeah, that's a big piece of it, maturity. I think just even in how we play, how we handle the ebbs and flows of the game is really anchored in maturity. And to be able to turn the page, and you know, we were in December and we lost 3 in a row, but they turned the page really quickly after each one of them, knowing, you know, here's what we got to get better at. We got a lot of basketball in front of us, and they don't get too high, even though you know, Purdue was emotional, and that was an awesome environment to be in. And I also don't want to take the fun away, so I'm not going to completely, all right, we're moving on to next. Let's not enjoy this. No, let them. Those moments are special, and that's what this experience and journey is about, is those type of moments, and that's what they'll talk about for the rest of their lives. But then in due time, you know, all right, now we move on to next, and they've done a great job of it, and I think, you know, in large part due to their maturity and experience, and you know, they know when it's time to have fun and when it's time to go to work, and knowing that we got another opponent, no matter who it is, whether it's going to be Illinois or Oregon or whatever comes next, that we have to continue to improve, and the scoreboard always starts 0-0, so whatever happened behind you doesn't matter, and you can only control what's right here now.
Greg, the more success you've had this season, I've seen more comparisons to the 14-15 team. Not from a personnel standpoint, obviously, but do you see similarities? Just that team was so loose and fun. I don't know, is this team like that in any way? Do you see that?
Yeah, I think the maturity jumps out, you know, in terms of being able to balance, as I just talked about, balance it both, balance fun with work. You know, that group did a great job of it, but you had a lot of talent on that team. You had a lot of experience. You had a couple 5th-year guys. You know, there was a good combination. You had some younger guys that were boosting us off the bench a little bit, and that team could score too. You know, that team could put up some points, and you know, I think the game has changed. And I don't want to get into compare and contrast of then and now, because that was their time and this is these guys' time. But I think anytime you have a team that has experience and talent and they're connected, you have a chance to have some exciting times. And you can't have, I think you can't be missing one of those 3. You know, you can't be experienced and talented and then not be connected. We've seen a lot of talented teams that can't get it done on the court. You know, and it's probably as glaring now as ever because of the NIL world and what, you know, rumored budgets are of different teams across the country, and you can't be experienced and connected and not have talent, right? And I think when you throw experience in with it, because we've seen talented and connected teams that maybe don't have the savviness and the wisdom and experience of older groups, when you, like I said, it's unique when they all come together at the same time, and like I said, still keeping things in perspective. They know we'll watch the film today of Illinois, and I operate in a one-day-at-a-time mindset. I don't fast forward it, so there's no reason they're going to fast forward it. And we'll, like I said, watch this clips from the other night, and then hit the weight room, and then onto the floor, and learn about and start preparing for Oregon.
The team turnover numbers have been good all season long, but using Purdue as a model, I mean, it seems like some of the few that you do get, come in bunches a bit. I guess, like, with Purdue and how little turnovers you were have, is there still growth to be had, even though you are at a good rate with turnovers, that you could get to like an even more
A zero?
dominant? Yeah, I mean,
Zero.
not zero,
Yeah,
like
we haven't
mistakes.
never
but-
had one here, we've had a one. Not that Coach Kravinoff needs to be reminded that he was the one year against Michigan State on an offensive rebound, he claimed he got pushed out of bounds, that's why he stepped out of bounds. I mean, we go on not necessarily a number, Mike, we go on a percentage of possessions. So if you have 100 possessions, we're roughly in the 12% range, 13% of the possessions. So if we're fluctuating in that 10 to 13 realm, I also don't want guys playing tight where they're worried about turning the ball over. Now, if there's some obvious things like we're going way too fast or we driving into way too much traffic, then, you know, I would say we get a little more critical in those moments. You know, but otherwise, you know, I want them to be aggressive. I want them to, I say all the time, let it rip, you know, let it go. And I think when you start playing more instinctively and naturally, you actually have less turnovers than if you're playing a lot of tight and worried about making a mistake and worried about, you know, looking over your shoulder all the time. You know, that's typically we've had turnovers early in the game, and I think it's been because we're forcing too much. And also early, and we don't change sides of the floor, you haven't distorted the defense. So they're loaded, they're waiting for you, they're in gaps, the backside is in, and so you have to be patient and let that offense through the possession and through a series of possessions. And sometimes that, you know, it's a accumulation effect that you've heard me talk about of what an offense can do if we keep coming with the thrust and call it an avalanche approach, what that impact has over the course of 40 minutes. And that offense typically gets a little easier, you know, but trying not to force things early in games is usually where I find consistently we get ourselves in a little trouble.
But you'd prefer to force things and settle down as the game goes on, as opposed
Well,
to?
no, I mean, I'm not saying force things, I'm saying still play aggressive but freely, but maybe not driving the first side or driving the second side, because defense is just like any good defense is gonna be there. You wanna distort them, you wanna get them in help and recover situations, you wanna get them caught in closeouts. Well, you aren't gonna catch them in closeouts if you're driving on the first time on the side that it's on, right? So having the understanding, that fine line between staying patient but yet being aggressive. So typically when we get ourselves in trouble, we're trying to drive through too many bodies and too many hands, and it's usually early in a possession. If I freeze the film, I go look at the shot clock, it's at 22 or 23. Look how many opposing jerseys are staring at the ball or loaded towards the ball. You know, defensively, we always try to play 5-on-3. We want 5 defensive bodies loaded up against 3 offensive bodies. So we'll flip it, you know, the other way. You don't want to play 3-on-5 offensively. And so trying to get those numbers more balanced where you're playing 2-on-2 and, you know, single side ball screens, those type of things. It takes time of changing sides of the floor, and quite frankly, it takes time of just wearing on a defense over the course of the game.
All right, thank you, Coach.
All good? All right, thank you.